Hi,
All right, there we go. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Here on the East
Whatever.
Coast, it is blue sky, and surprisingly, the Horizon Mountains that we have are almost meeting at the top. They're huge mountains today, spectacular white. They beat any mountain. Ours are in the south today, and quite lovely. Just the vista is
Thank you.
lovely. I love
Well,
living here it's called the Flatlands. But when you see clouds right at the edge of the horizon, it looks just like snow-capped mountains.
yeah, right. Well, just like versus the real McCoy, which we have, but we are in the season of the Northwest of Pacific Northwest, actually in central Washington, of the fire season.
Oh,
So,
yes. So your lovely mountains are completely shrouded in smoke, and you
no,
can't see anything at all. Mine are
no,
better.
no, just a little hazy this morning, kind of like life, just a little hazy.
Hazy and lazy.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that's not what
and
we're talking
hot.
about today.
No,
This is podcast 55,
it
I
is
think.
okay.
I think it's 55. And we are talking about one of the very vital principles of life itself, which all 3-year-olds intuitively know how to do.
That is to pick your nose
Pick your nose
carefully.
very carefully. That is the principle. Do not forget this principle.
Correct.
3-year-olds understand it, but adults need to relearn.
That's
Pick
right.
your nose carefully. And that's only half of the principle.
Correct.
The other half of the principle,
Is to pick
your yeses even more
even more
carefully.
carefully.
Right.
Correct.
So pick your nose carefully and pick your yeses even more carefully. That's really the
So,
principle we're talking about today.
so as you can figure, we're not talking about Noes. We're talking
No,
about
NOSE. We're
NOS.
not, no. You got it back.
NOES.
We are not
NOES.
talking about NOSE like an elephant has. We're talking about NOES, the plural of no.
I had to do that just for you today.
Spelling is not one of Mike's great.
Does that make you? Wait a minute. I'm the guy that helps you edit everything in the world. What are you
Every
talking about?
time we spell this in any kind of a text and we say pick your nose carefully, it spells it NOSE, and we have to constantly change it to NOES, which is the plural of no. It really is a vital principle, and what's not picking your nose or your yeses carefully is what leads to an immense amount of stress.
That's exactly right.
There's folks that I have, friends or contacts I have online, as well as actual human beings that live in my environment. And on occasion, people get pretty stressed. They're stressed with life, and often it has to do with not having enough time, energy, or money to get through to the next
Whatever.
category or plateau,
Right.
or whatever, the next day, next week, next month. And the stress, when somebody talks about being very stressed, overwhelmed, at their breaking point, one of the early questions I will ask is this about money, time, or energy? Which of those three, or combination? And people write back and say, well, that's interesting because it's really about time, or it's really about energy. I just can't keep up with the demands, whatever it happens to be. I'm not getting enough sleep, which, however you want to word the commodity you're running out of. And after we listen to that for a little bit, I will plunge into the pick your nose issue. What have you said yes to that you really wish now you had said no to? I never asked the question, what have you said no to that you really wish you had said yes to?
Right.
It's the other way around, because people, for a variety of reasons, we can talk a little bit about some of those, will say yes They're people pleasers. They don't feel like they have an option. It's something they really want to do or have or whatever. There's some reason why they say yes. But after they're caught in the stress pinch, they really wish they had said no.
Right.
And so that's really what this principle is about.
Right.
It's a skill like any other aspect of life. Saying no is as hard as swimming the breaststroke or dunking a basketball. You can do it if you have the right equipment and you practice. And that's really what we're talking about today
Right.
is what the concept is,
Right.
and then how do you practice saying no.
And sometimes we will not say no because we look at the situation, and I think this dynamic happens frequently in parenting, particularly with kids. It's just easier not to say no. It's easier not to
Okay?
say anything
Easier.
uh, because you don't you know you don't want to deal with the fallout if you say no and what that looks like because you really haven't built a plan around how to respond to that kind of emotional dynamic that happens
So what I'm
with
hearing you
a kid.
say is when your no, the no you're talking about is a boundary for someone else. When a
Correct.
child says, "Can I have a cookie just before dinner?" and you say no, that's kind of in the same realm of what we're talking about, but it's something a little different from that when you pick your own nose. And that is the next door neighbor mom comes over and says, "I need to run to the store. Can you watch my three kids in your backyard for just 10 minutes?" And it's a boundary for yourself to say no. But it's not you're not saying no to your neighbor that she can't do something. You're saying no for your own protection, even though you could say yes. And that's what's really hard. It's your neighbor. You've traded
Right.
favors to
Right.
each other all the time.
Right.
It's only 10 minutes, but you know that neighbor. It's going to
Right.
be 45 minutes by the time she
Right.
goes to that store, another store, does
Right.
stops for gas, and her kids haven't had dinner. They're hungry. They had to get up early. They're overtired. Your kids get into, and you will be at your wits' end. And you say, "I just wish I had said no." How do you pick your nose carefully? How do you
Right.
do that? So that's a family type situation. At work, the boss comes in 20 minutes before the end of the day with 4 more reports that need to be done. But your child has a soccer game tonight. And the boss says, "I really need you to finish these things up. It's only going to be a few minutes extra." How do you say no in that situation? So that's momentary. When you have a brother-in-law says, "I want to buy a car, but my credit stinks. Would you co-sign for me?" How do you pick your nose?
Right.
Carefully
Excuse me.
in that kind of situation, which is not just a one-off. I got reports to do before 4:15. It really is. This is family. These are relationships. This
Right.
is your mother is starting to lose her facilities, her faculties, and she says, "Can I come live with you?" How do you say no? And that's lifelong. That's
Right.
gigantic. So we're not saying
Excuse
always
me.
say no. We're not saying that's your go-to answer. It is pick your nose carefully so you can pick your yeses even more carefully.
Right. And I think that, the first aspect of this has to do with, and back to what we talked about, is that, why do people act that way and what's that doing to you? And that whole sense of taking assessment of sitting down and saying, okay, why am I so stressed out? Why am I so exhausted? Why is it fill in the blank? It's like life is just hard. Sometimes life is just hard. Okay, that's a given. But if that is a lifestyle where you feel like your life is out of control, I think the for many of us, the first thing is to sit down and to just think about, even just think about the day you just went through. And where were those times throughout the day if you had just picked your nose better, life would not have been near as stressful for you.
So some things are really essential for you to do, and you decide what that is. It could be work related, family related, household related, whatever, personal related. You're the only one who can do it. I mean,
Right.
you're really the only mom or dad in the family, and when there's an issue that faces your kids, or your parents, or your brother or your sister, you're the only one really who can do that. So
Right.
you have to say no to other opportunities that
Right.
drain out one of your precious commodities. When I talk with people, I'm not just throwing out random ideas. There are three specific commodities of life that I bring up regularly. Is the stress in your life because you don't have enough time, because you don't have enough money, or you don't have enough energy? And those three are not random. I don't have another list of 16 more
Right.
commodities to go over. Money, time, and energy, those are the main three.
Right.
Now, you might be able to find a fourth or fifth or sixth one that are more important to you. But a commodity is something that you have a limited supply of. It is not limitless.
Right.
You can expend it, and as you expend it, you need to somehow recover it. So
Right.
if you spend your money, you've got to have a paycheck or some source of income that allows you to recover that amount into your checking account. You can only spend money once. If it's energy, you need to refuel with food. You have to have better moisture, or quench your thirst. You have to have better sleep, something that goes into your energy system. If it is time, you have to wait till tomorrow morning to be able to get another day out ahead of you and be able to work with additional time. So those three commodities to me are really the vital ones that over and over, when I've listened to people feeling damaging stress in their own lives,
Right.
stress, everybody's got stress, which is good. Stress is very, very good. It motivates you. You really get things done. It's damaging stress usually comes to the simple question: is it money, is it time, or is it energy? And they'll be able to pick one or two of those. Sometimes all three, but usually it's one or two of those. Now, once we know the commodity, we can begin to work on some solutions. And when people have hope, that changes
Right.
the discussion in a
Right.
significant way.
Right. And when we talk about energy, we talk about in our training when we talk about the whole area of depletion, we use the we use the analogy of filling your tank. Of is your tank being emptied all the time? In other words, the tank being your emotional abilities, your energy, your levels, whatever you want to, however you want to put that in there. What fills your tank, what fills you up emotionally as a person that gives you energy, and what drains you. And so when you're not picking your nose well, then it's pretty much you're in a free for all where somebody's gone and opened the tap on the other end, and it's a 4 inch, tap on this huge container, and it's just flowing out. But there's a trickle flowing in, and maybe that has to do with your physical ability. Maybe it has to do that you're exhausted physically. And why is that? Because you're expending all of this physical energy running around doing all these things, whatever it is that you feel like has to be done. when there's really nothing coming in on the other end to replace that in your tank. And so what we're saying in the metaphor of that is, okay, figure out how to turn that spigot, not necessarily all the way off, but turn it way down so that what's coming in right now
Mhm.
is more than what's going out.
If you can, and sometimes it's turning other spigots off that really are not essential so that your essential spigots can stay open. When
Correct.
we had the idea of picking your nose sometimes requires um, analytic thinking, minimal analytic
Right.
thinking.
Right.
We were driving along the other day. There were three of us in the car, and my gas tank in my van was right cruising on empty because I'm always looking for a good price. And out here in the East Coast, gas can be expensive relative to our salaries. Most of us are earning $3.25 an hour still. So when gas hits $4.69, it's really steep for us out in the West Coast. You could pay $10 a gallon. Your salaries are, starting at $40,000 a
Brother,
day.
you wish. Yeah.
Anyway, but you get my point. Anyways, relative to economy, you look for the best gas price. Okay. So I'm a member of BJ's, and BJ's usually has gas anywhere between 30 and 40 cents less than a regular retail gas station. So my gas gauge was on nearly empty, and gas has been coming down here in the East Coast. It was up at 4.99 that couple of months ago. It's now, I've seen 4.29, so it's down 80 cents since the high point. So you're always looking for a good deal. And we drove by BJ's, and BJ's had gas for $3.97, and the standard out in the open area was like $4.39. There's a difference of 40 cents a gallon. So one of the guys in my car said, "Why don't you stop in before you run out of gas?" And I said, "This time of the afternoon, BJ's is going to have 5 cars deep waiting to get gas. True?" And they said, "Yeah, we're going to sit for a while." Okay. 5 cars deep, and it takes 5 minutes for each car to fill up. So if I get in line behind other cars, it's going to take me 25 minutes to get in, plus 5 more minutes to get my gas, right? Good estimate? Yeah, good estimate. So that's 30 minutes of time till I get my gas. I'm going to save 40 cents a gallon. That sounds like an awful lot of money. I'm going to only put 10 gallons in just so I can get on my way. I'll deal with the other. I need to fill it up. That's going to be 17 gallons, but I don't want to. I'm going to get 10 gallons. How much am I going to save? $4. 40 cents a gallon, 10 gallons. I'm going to save $4. That's basically 1 gallon of gas at BJ's, a little bit less than 1 gallon of gas, but it's going to take me a half an hour to save $4. That means I'm going to sit here for $8 an hour. I earn about $100 an hour doing sign work. So why would I save $4 and spend a half an hour of my life and your 2 lives? We're not even going to count that has any value at all. So I'm going to say no to 40 cents a gallon savings, stop somewhere and get myself 5, 8 gallons just to get me on down the road. And I'll deal with the gas situation in a little bit. I don't have to do that right now. And so if I don't get 10 gallons, if I only get 5, I've just cut my loss in half.
Right.
Now I'm only losing $2. Is it worth sitting for 25 minutes? Now, if I could go into BJ's and be the next car, the numbers are all different. So it's really worth it for me to go in. So at 7:30 or 8 in the morning or 7:30 at night when there's no lines, I can buzz right in. So the concept to me is I can say no to saving gas money in order to say yes to something more important to me, and
Right.
that's my time.
Right.
Because I can never get my time back.
Correct.
So sometimes it's just kind of a minimal. Think about it. You look at the 40 cents a gallon and your brain says you can't say no to that, but you can.
Right.
Your neighbor comes over and says, "Can you watch my 3 kids? I'm only going to be gone 10 minutes." And you say, "I would like to do that. Is there any chance you can be gone tomorrow morning or after 7:30 tonight? I'm just getting ready to do dinner and I really can't add that in right this second, even though I really want to." You see somebody in the store that is a talker, she's negative, she drains you down. I'm not being sexist here. Yeah, it's just a VDP, very draining person, and they start into their latest woe. How do you say no? And what you say is, you don't say, "I'd really like to talk to you," because you know you're not going to talk. What you say is, "I would really like to listen to you, but I need you to call me and let's set up a time." You know they're never going to do it. They're always waiting for the next Venus flytrap fly to fall into their mouth. It's not, they're never going to call you. But you say, "I really do want to listen to you, but I can't do it right now."
Right.
As opposed to, "Get away from me," or try to go to another aisle in the store. You make the positive statement while you're saying no. "I really want to listen to you, but I need to have an appointment," or "Let's get together for coffee. Is that okay with you?" They'll start into a story and say, "Hold on a second, but if that's okay, let's get together next week." You know it's never going to happen, so you're safe, but you say, "I really want to listen, but I can't do it right now."
Right.
That's how you say no. You can say no creatively so you can say yes to the things that are important.
Right. And I think that has to do, a lot of this has to do with you, as you said earlier, doing some assessment and being honest with yourself and not afraid of that. Um, when I think there's a sense in our culture so many times where, um, no, saying no is like a 4-letter word to people. It's like you just don't tell people no. Well, the reality is it's incredibly freeing when you're doing that. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be, you don't have to be a
If you're
bully.
unsophisticated about it, you can just say no in a mean way. I mean, you're
Sure.
going to learn finesse
Right.
as time goes by. But if the only way you can say no is to be rude about it at the beginning, say no, preserve your nose so you
Right.
can say yes to the right things.
Right.
Sorry to
And
interrupt.
no,
Not sorry.
that's a very good point because the reality is if what you're being is drained so much that you're really not even, I mean, the quality of life you have is not is on a functional basis. That's just it's no way to live. Um, and a lot of that has to do with what we're talking about here today is that we get so balled up in all the good stuff that's out there, and particularly when you're raising a family. I mean, come on, the pressures of having your kids in everything, doing everything, all those kinds of things. Uh, they don't really have the capacities to be able to say no, and they're certainly not going to learn it if you don't train them.
They don't have capacity. That's a great one because if they've never seen their parents say no,
Exactly.
a child actually starts out with a good capacity to say no. We were talking about the 3-year-olds and picking their nose.
Right.
Give a 3-year-old boy or a girl a toy they want to play with. Send another 3-year-old to take it away from them. They'll say no real fast.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So you start out with an intuitive. Now that's a very selfish reason to say no. We're advocating picking your nose for self-care reasons.
Exactly.
It really has to do with being able to say yes to the things that matter the most to you and saying no to the things that you really have discretion.
Right.
Use your discretion appropriately,
Right.
and it's a skill that you can practice. You'll get better at it as time goes by.
Right. And And, as we kind of wrap this up, I am going to come back again to the two diagnostic questions that we use in everything that we train. Is it, what is this doing to you? And what are you going to do about it? So if you don't take that time to reflect, and in our culture, we're not encouraged to do that. You got to turn some things off. You have to set some things down to be able to let your mind just start thinking about what's going on in your life on a daily basis or just that day. If you do nothing but even reflect about what went on since noon or since 5 o'clock.
Or
Uh,
if you do nothing, you have a gap of 10 minutes just to refresh.
right,
I mean, it's when you're racing somewhere and the sun is setting and it's absolutely gorgeous. The idea of pulling over for 5 minutes to wind your windows down and just take it in. You
right,
have to be somewhere that you can't take 5 minutes. Say no
right,
to racing down the road and 5 minutes. The sunset's only gonna last 5 minutes anyway.
right.
So just take that in. I think the key is some people have lost the ability to care for themselves as an actual primary value in life.
Right, exactly. And it's not a sense of where we're asking people to be or thinking it is just a deep selfishness on your part, but understanding there is self-care that really needs to happen in your life for quality of life because it affects not just you,
Everything.
it affects
It
everything.
it affects your energy, it
Yeah,
affects your money,
yep.
it affects your time. I mean, it
And
really
it,
does.
and it affects the relationships around you.
Correct.
You can't get away from that. So if you're stressed out, you're maxed out, uh, those are going to develop all kinds of interesting emotions in you that eventually are going to come out in ways that you just don't really want them to. So pick your nose carefully,
So that you can pick your yeses even more
even more
carefully.
carefully. So this is Mike from West Coast, and
Mike
in
from the East
one,
Coast. Beautiful
yeah,
day here, by the way.
yeah,
You
it's
really
beautiful
should
here too.
move to the East Coast.
No, no.
It's
All right,
81% humidity. It is an
oh,
absolutely beautiful day. Uh,
all right. Take care,
have fun.
folks. All right, thanks.
Next week is a good one. Give yourself permission.
Ooh, one of my favorites.
Yeah,
All
we're going to
right.
talk about that.